All right, good evening. Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. It's right at 6 p.m. Welcome to the Stanislaus Council of Governments Policy Committee. I'd like to go ahead and call to order.
Member Chiesa?
Here.
Member Graywall? Chair Condit?
Here.
Member Condit, Chance Condit? Member Withrow? Member Lopez?
Here.
Member McFadden? Member Zwalin?
Here.
Member Escucha Brayton?
Here.
Member Wright?
Here.
Vice Chair Graham?
Here.
Member Gilbert?
Here.
Member Clausel? Member Hernandez?
Here.
Member Phillips?
Here.
And Member Gokin?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If we would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to move on the agenda to public comments. Member of the public may address the policy board on any item not on the agenda. First card I have is Raj. Oh, correction. That's for an agenda item. Milt Treeweather.
Good evening, Chair, board members, staff, Milt Treeweiler. What I want to speak on tonight is actually something that was said so well last meeting that I'm going to use the words of last meeting. So here goes. Next on the agenda. Comment. Members of the public may address the policy board on any item not on the agenda. A comment shall be held to 5 minutes. I do have a couple of cards. Carolyn.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Newman. I am with the board member for the Stanislaus County Taxpayer Association. I was on the 24-25 civil grand jury, and I am on the Citizens Transit Sales Tax Commission for the city of Modesto. In light of the recent Modesto Focus article and my own follow-up investigation and the recent civil grand jury report, I am renewing my call to bring in the county auditor to do yearly sampling to protect the financial future of the county retirees enrolled in StanSara. Everybody's future is at stake in that pool. Everybody should have some kind of, the auditor should have some kind of oversight to that pool because it is obviously vulnerable in this way. I also request that this board release the executive summary mentioned in that Modesto Focus reporting. After the previous responses that the jury's original investigation was blindsiding and there were doubts cast on the veracity of that report, I believe the public is due the full weight of the truth and known information. We got here because of fear, secrecy, and shame. To withhold this report would be a choice to repeat those past mistakes.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for being here tonight. Next up is Stephen Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Stephen Morrow, and for the past 4 years, I have been serving as a board member for the Stanislaus Regional Transit Authority. That term is coming to an end next week. During that period of time, I've learned some things about serving on a board like this, and part of it is making sure that we ask the right questions so we keep abreast of what's going on. Now, for this agency, this has been a tough year thanks to the abuses of the previous executive director. Now, what happens to her is going to be up to the district attorney. But one thing I did learn is that oversight is something that we, as anyone who serves on a board, cannot take that lightly. And I've learned to ask some better questions. So as we move forward, this board is going to need to ask questions, be diligent about making sure that everything works properly, and that the public money that you folks have been entrusted to distribute properly is used wisely and not wasted at this point. So for everyone, as we move forward, I'm hoping that we can put this behind us and get going and take care of the transportation needs, because we have many needs, and not just related to mass transit. There's still a lot of road work that needs to be done. And when the front page story on the Modesto Bee has nothing to do with the good work that this agency does and only about the negative, that doesn't help anybody. So we'll just move forward and just try to think positive and get things done for our community. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to make sure that we all remain honest, trustworthy, and ethical. That's what makes America work, and it's something we have to strive for. We cannot have, corruption here in Stanislaus County. So please do your best. If you see anything that's wrong, report it where it should be reported. Thank you.
Thank you, Milt. Thank you for being here tonight. That's the only card I have for public comment. Anybody else in the audience like to make a public comment about items not on the agenda? Anything online? Okay. We'll be moving on. Okay. We are going to move the executive director report up, and that's next on the list. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, welcome back. It's been 2 months now since we've seen you, and we've been doing a lot. I would say this a little bit cheesy, but StanCog is making moves literally and figuratively. So we've done, we've made our office move, and we have invited some new leadership, and we're staffing up our agency, setting new standards for the organization and for our organizational culture, performance, accountability, and transparency. And really, the bottom line is just caring for what we do and being stewards of taxpayer dollars. So we've some of the things I want to highlight in particular tonight, if you would go to the next slide, is the new leadership on our team that I want to introduce you to. As I said, we are staffing up, and I'm excited to report that we have 14 filled positions out of the 17 positions of the agency. So that's, I think, a lot more from when I got here. And I'm feeling the difference. Carol Denuzzo, the Finance and Administrative Director, you met in June. So she's been here a good month and a half now, getting her feet wet. And you'll hear a pretty comprehensive report from her at the end of the agenda. We've created a space for that. And then just want to introduce Francisco Martin first. He's our new planning director. He started July 6th. Francisco has almost 20 years of experience in the transportation industry, coming from the private sector. So he's used to working hard and fast. And he's a registered engineer as well. And I think him and I both share a commitment to planning really with a purpose. So really here to plan to help our local jurisdictions deliver projects and move forward our planning program here at StanCog in the right way. So I wanted to just introduce Francisco, give you an opportunity to introduce yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, good evening, policy board members. My name is Francisco Martin. I'm the new director of planning. I'm also a city of Modesto resident and a licensed civil engineer with almost 20 years of experience. I started my career early on working on big projects in this region like North County Corridor, State Route 132. So I feel honored to be in this position, and I look forward to working with everyone on this board. Thank you.
Thanks, Francisco.
Thanks, Francisco. And then next is James Hanley. He's our new manager of engineering, the first and ever staff engineer we have here at StanCog. James is also licensed professional engineer, also a land surveyor in California. And then he has, I think, 13 other certifications behind his name that I don't know what half of them mean, but they're quite impressive. And he has a lot of tools in his belt, and he'll be a huge resource for our agency and our staff. And just super excited to have James on board as well. He also comes from the private industry with 15 years of experience delivering transportation and development projects throughout California and a lot of experience in the Valley. So James, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I got started in the Valley in a construction company with my dad in high school. And so my junior and senior years of high school, my dad made me work 40 hours a week, and we had building construction. We were doing a bank remodel of Valley First Credit Union in Oakdale. So that's where I started my career 20 years ago. And from there I went off and I went to engineering school. I went all around the country, and I've worked in Massachusetts, worked in the Bay Area, worked in Idaho. But I started right here in Stanislaus County from the very beginning. So Amber and I worked together previously, and I think I'm one of the few people that has seen her leadership firsthand. And I know what we can do together, and I know what she can build this organization into. And I'm really looking forward for where we can go and what we can do and the positive impact we can bring on Stanislaus County. So
Thanks, James.
Okay.
Yeah, James will lead our delivery, and he's already working with Tony Harris on handing over a lot of work on 132 and our other project delivery for the agencies. So that's really exciting. And then we have some internal promotions to some of the staff that's very well deserved, who contributed a lot to positive work culture. Josephine Oshana has been promoted to admin services coordinator and clerk of the board. So she will be the clerk of this board as well as all of our other committees. So congratulations. And then Anita Reyna has been promoted to Senior Financial Services Specialist, and I don't believe she's here this evening. But again, another well-deserved promotion, and we're just happy to reward the people who are doing the good work for StanCog. And then, as I mentioned, we moved by the end of July, which was actually absolutely incredible. And big thanks to Shannon and our staff for all the work that they did to make it happen. Again, they took the opportunity to not, when we didn't have a board meeting, to kind of just go run and do it really fast. So our official new location is 1407 I Street. If you haven't visited, please come visit. We plan to schedule more official kind of open house for an opportunity for the board to come visit as well. And this really signals a new fresh start for the agency, and it really has felt like that. And it's been good, I think, for the staff. And it's a great space for us to grow into and do some phased improvements to build out the boardroom. So we'll be bringing some things back in the future to identify those improvements in the future. Other activities, as I mentioned, Carol will provide a more comprehensive update on finance and administrative items. We've been doing a lot of coordination with San Joaquin Valley COGS on a number of matters, preparing for the One Voice DC trip here coming up next month. So that'll be good. And then we had our friends from the Federal Highway Administration were here this week for 3 days. Every 4 years, we have a certification review for our roles and requirements as a metropolitan planning organization. So our federal, they evaluate our planning and programming over the last 4 years, and our recertification's up in October, so they will send us a letter, hopefully positively. But they came and we did site visits, so thank you to our local jurisdictions for their help in helping us set up a tour of 132 of the transit center. We toured the Virginia Trail here in Modesto, as well as NCC. So big thanks to Toby Wells and Dave Lehman, as well as Adam Barth and our friends at SGRC. And big thanks to Caltrans District 10 and headquarters. So it was a good experience. I think it's really good, although it's very tough timing for us right now. Our staff is very inundated with a lot of work. It's also a good opportunity with new staff to kind of get that training and for us to level set and look at, okay, what are good things that StanCog has done well over the last 4 years and what we're currently doing and what are things we can improve on. So it's really actually good that we can just set ourselves out in the right direction and work closely with FHWA and Caltrans to do that work. So they've come here in partnership, and so it was a good experience. And with that, I will take any questions the more about you have.
Any questions for Amber? All right. moving on to consent calendar. Policy board member, any policy board member like to discuss any items on consent? Five F. Okay. Is there any public that would like to make a comment on the consent item? Anything online?
Yes.
Sure, come on.
If I'm not mistaken, there's somebody who's having technical difficulties, and wanted to comment regarding, I believe, consent calendar. I believe it was item, I want to say 5B or F. I can't remember. It was one of those two. They let me know about it in advance. They're in the mountains. The tech connection's a little iffy, so I just would like to ask that to be pulled.
Okay, 5F is going to be discussed, so. All right, I'll bring it back to the policy board for a motion excluding F.
I'll second it.
Okay, I got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Going back to 5F.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have a comment online.
For which one?
Oh, it doesn't say, it's not on the consent. It's actually a question from John Henley. When will audited financial statements for 2024 to 2025 be available?
Yeah, that would we've already passed public comment, but we'll make sure that he gets an answer. Go ahead with 5F.
Thank you very much. On item 1B, the recommendation 1B on the response to the grand jury, I don't want to get crossed because we had quickly changed the vacation accumulation that we're stating mirrors or something similar that mirrors the counties, and that's not quite the case. So we still have to take another look at that just to make sure, but I would change the language on that one component just to express that the accumulation rate is the same, but the years of service are not. So does that make sense? Am I clear?
That clear to
I
you?
want to make sure that that doesn't get, because that's not a correct statement, the way it's written exactly.
Correct. So I'll go ahead, we'll make notes, but if you want to go through the particular items, and staff was made aware of some of these comments. And so we do have a proposed revision to address some of these and provide some clarification.
Okay.
All right, so are we going to table F then until? You have the
I would let everyone speak first, then.
Any other questions?
I'm just unclear. We're not going to approve it until we know the changes. So is it going to be?
I think she has changes. She was made aware of it earlier today.
So the executive director has a proposed revision to address some of these comments, but if the board would like to go through and identify any others, perhaps there are some that we are not aware of, and we can address those collectively.
Because this has to be turned in before our next meeting, correct, by September 8th?
That is correct.
So we have to either approve something tonight or have a special meeting.
Correct, but we do have the ability to make some amendments and
Right.
approve as amended.
So you were referring to recommendation 1B, is that correct? So are we going to make those changes now so then we can?
Yeah.
No, I know. We do need to hear from the public, but we also need to know exactly what the changes are going to be. So then the public knows.
Well, let's, if anybody else has any comment towards that, Amber, if you have.
Yeah, I think Monica, if you want to clarify, right? I mean, I think if the board needs to approve it with the recommended changes. So whatever those recommended changes are, we can clarify at the end of this. And you will approve it with the recommended changes. So we'll have to agree on the revised language.
Any other questions? 5F. Like to open it up to public? Come on.
Buck, it's like, I'm coming. With regards to 5F, which does tie into item 5B, if you look at the response to the jury, I knew that was going to fall. On recommendation 1B, it says that your recommendation in response to the allocated vacation and such says that it is on par with the county, which recommendation B is not true. If you are going to make a correction to item 5B in the agenda, then, or no, excuse me, if you're making a correction to this, then you have to acknowledge that in the handbook for the county employees, it's 21 years for the 5 weeks, and the current policy does not match, does not echo, and therefore this letter is not specifically accurate to a one-for-one comparison, which is really important when it comes to Stan-Sarah calculations and their vulnerabilities.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any other public comment? Anything online? I'll bring it back to the policy board for legal.
Can I ask one question? Because what we adopted is in the handbook, right? That we adopted these rates. We need to go back and we need to have a discussion because they do not mirror the counties. Can we send a response to the grand jury or we make that change?
So
Discuss it.
yeah, there may be some miscommunication or misunderstanding with respect to the language. The reference in the proposed response says vacation policies. It doesn't reference rates of vacation accrual. The rates of vacation accrual are not identical to those of the county, but the policies regarding vacation accrual and cash outs, et cetera, are similar or on par with those of the county. So we can definitely clarify that. And I do believe we have a proposed clarification that's being brought up on the screen, and it shows the proposed revisions and track changes.
Yeah, if you can scroll down a little bit, please. Yeah, there you go, and zoom. Is that the track changes version? It's not.
This is the language for the grand jury. Right? This is what we're going to send to the grand jury.
No, I mean, can you show the track changes? You have the version that has the track changes.
Guess I'm dealing with a twofold component here. A, the accruals are not what I anticipated. They exceed my expectation on the accruals and of what I think the board talked about. So that may not, I'm asking if that doesn't have to be done today, we can have that discussion later because it's a handbook change, right? On the accrual rate.
That is correct. And you may
Okay.
recall that the 2021 rates were reaffirmed by the policy board in September of last year.
Okay. So I will be asking the board to take that back up on the accrual rates to match what the county's accrual rates are. I think we're wordsmithing here, and I'm okay with the grand jury changing the language right now, but
Duly noted on the handbook.
We're having some. Okay, well, the recommended change under, so you're seeing this is what was sent in the board packet. Hopefully. All right. Essentially to state StanCog's vacation policies in effect in 2025, instead of saying mirrored those of, we'll cross that, strike that and say were consistent with other local government agencies. And that's the, a revision that would correct the inaccuracy of the mirrored agreement. And that would respond to grand jury report recommendation, but your recommendation is separate and would be a future employee handbook policy change. Okay, just so if you can zoom.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? I'm going to go back out to the public due to the changes in the language. Any public comment on the changes? Caroline, I'm looking at you.
Now it feels expected. So if in regards to the vacation policy, again, I would still want Stan Sarah's blessing on this because this I worked for an insurance broker as an executive assistant. This speaks to the liability of Stan Sarah when it comes to paying out for pensions and things of the like. I still want to make sure they're on board with this rate if it is different from the counties, because this is the county's primary pension plan. I still want their blessing on this. If I am understanding correctly, this has not been sent to the judge as an official statement. I'm hoping, because that difference is, of course, that language is a material difference. Yeah, I think that's it.
Any other public comments? Anything online? I'm going to look at Terry because I saw him reaching for his mic.
So are we gonna, thanks, Buck, are we gonna, talk about 1F also? Yes, please. So 1F, I think, deals with vacation payouts. And so the thought was that maybe we could, have a line item on our budget that would separately state vacation payouts. And I don't know if that's something we're going to decide here right now, but we would set up a separate line item on our budget that would, anticipate what staff thinks vacation payouts will be for the coming year. And then once we get fully up and running here with our finances, as we're working on with all our new staff, we could get possibly quarterly reports on our budget, as far as here's what we budgeted for the first quarter, here's where our actuals are for the first quarter, and do that on a quarterly basis. I know we're trying to catch up on all these things, and we've got audited financial statements to catch up on it too. But I would love to have an item on that, since it was brought up, since it was such a big deal. It would be great to have a separate item on the budget, a line item just deals with vacation payouts, and we would track it with a budget for the year, what we think, and then we would track it quarterly as to where we are in connection with that budget and how much has been paid out versus what we budgeted for. And just, I think it would alleviate a lot of questions if we could do that.
So there is also a proposed revision for that particular item. And Noemi, is it possible to make it a little larger on the screen, please?
Remember to talk into your mics because someone just responds up.
And not necessarily to put Carol on the spot, but I'm not sure, Carol, if you are prepared to speak to that as we, just discussed a couple hours ago, about it as opposed to being a line item in the budget, right? That we would, we can report out as a separate item because it is not technically, budgeted in that way, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's typically recognized as a liability, but we can definitely report out on it separately in a quarterly report. When we go over the budget, we can absolutely have an item that discusses that specifically.
And so here's the, proposed language that basically states that we can implement that policy to report out quarterly.
Okay. Bring it back to the policy board for a motion to approve the changes, proposed changes.
Did we address the Stan Sarah component? If that is of interest and important, is that something that's important that be checked before this is finalized?
So just generally, when Stan Sarah is considering any kind of retirement paperwork or pension package, they do verify based on the tier that the retiring employee is a member of. And they also do look at the provisions of the employee handbook for that particular agency to verify that the retirement calculations made in accordance with the applicable policies and the applicable rates of vacation accrual. And so this item here is a response to a recommendation to the grand jury, but it is explaining our response to the recommendation 1B. It is not committing to a particular course of action. It's just part of the verbal narrative that explains why the recommendation is not being implemented, because the recommendation from the grand jury is that this item be included in the annual evaluation of the executive director, to what degree employees are using their allotted vacation. So as clarification, that narrative is just providing the clarification as to why it's not going to be included as part of the evaluation process. It's not a commitment on the part of the board to a certain rate of vacation accrual or vacation policy.
All right.
Any other questions?
I had a comment from public. If you all can just move your microphones really close. Some of them may be far away, like Carolyn had stated. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, I'm just trying to read this and take it all in, it's new. I feel like in addition to this particular item being reported quarterly, there's multiple others that also we should see quarterly. So I'm glad to see that be called out in this particular item. Thank you.
Charlie?
I'll second the motion.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now moving on to public hearing. 6A, draft 2026 Regional Transportation Plan, Sustainable Community Strategy, Environmental Impact Report, and Air Quality Conformity Analysis. Francisco.
Good evening, policy board members. My name is Francisco Martin, Director of Planning, and I'm here to introduce this agenda item. So the purpose of today's meeting is to hold public hearings and receive comments on the following draft documents. The 2026 Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy, also referred to as the RTP-SES, the accompanying Air Quality Conformity Analysis, the Draft Environmental Impact Report, also referred to as the EIR, for the RTP-SES, and the Draft 2027 Federal Transportation Improvement Program, also referred to as the FTIP. Two separate public hearings will be held during today's meeting. The first will focus on the draft RTP-SES, Air Quality Conformity Analysis, and the draft EIR. The second public hearing will be held for the draft FTIP. Before we begin the presentations, I would like to ask if there's anyone in the audience that requires translation or interpreting during the public hearings. We have an interpreter on site, Roberto Rodrigan, should anyone desire English to Spanish translation. I will now hand it over to Roberto to provide the opening remarks in Spanish.
Buenas tardes, su nombre es Francisco Martínez, gerente de planificación. El propósito de la Junta de hoy es llevar a cabo audiencias donde el público pueda participar y aportar comentarios sobre los siguientes documentos preliminares. El Plan de Transporte Regional y Estrategia de Comunidades Sustentables, RTP-SSS, por sus siglas en inglés, correspondientes al año 2026. El análisis de conformidad de la calidad del aire. La versión inicial del informe del impacto ambiental, EIR por sus siglas en inglés, estos dos últimos ligados al mencionado RTP-SSS del año 2026, y el documento preliminar del Programa Federal de Mejoras al Transporte, FTIP por sus siglas en inglés, correspondiente al año 2027. Se llevarán a cabo dos audiencias públicas separadas durante la reunión de hoy. La primera se centrará en la versión inicial del RTP-SSS del año 2026, el análisis de conformidad de la calidad del aire, el informe preliminar de impacto medioambiental, y la segunda audiencia pública se realizará para el documento inicial del FTIP del año 2027. Antes de comenzar las presentaciones, quisiera preguntar si hay alguien en la audiencia que requiera servicios de traducción o interpretación durante esta audiencia pública. Contamos con un intérprete, su servidor Roberto Rodríguez, por si alguien desea interpretación de inglés a español.
Gracias, Roberto. I don't see anyone online or in person that's requesting translation or interpretation services. So we're going to proceed with the presentation portion of this agenda item. And now I will hand it over to our consultant, Michael Schmidt from Kimley Horn, for a presentation on the RTP SES, air quality conformity analysis, and the draft EIR. We will open the public hearing after the presentation from Kimley Horn.
Y ahora cederé la palabra a nuestro asesor, quien lidera la actualización del RTP SSS del año 2026 para una presentación sobre el RTP SSS, el análisis de conformidad con la calidad del aire y el informe preliminar del impacto ambiental. La audiencia pública donde se podrá comentar se abrirá después de la presentación de la agencia Kimley Horn.
Sorry, we still have to do it for the public.
There might be somebody online that
Yeah,
hasn't had a question or
we,
request. but-
we will not interpret the presentation portion of it, but we are going to translate the public hearing portion of it.
Good evening, Chair Corbett and Board. Great. So these are the major items I'm going to cover during the presentation. I'm going to provide an overview of what an RTP SCS is. I'm going to talk about the plan, goals, and objectives. I'm going to talk about the public outreach process that we completed. I'm going to talk about the scenarios, which is an important part of the process where we basically look at different potential futures for the Stanislaus County region. We're going to take a look at revenue and cost projections. It's important that this plan is fiscally constrained. And then we'll talk about conformity and greenhouse gases. Finally, as Francisco said, we'll talk about the environmental impact report, and then the public hearing part will take place. So an RTP SCS documents the long-range multimodal transportation system, and it's intended to cover a horizon out through 2049. It's got several elements that are mandated by both federal and state government. And it includes importantly, it includes all transportation modes. So bike, walking, driving, airplanes, and transit. And it also importantly, considers how land use plays into transportation. It also documents the compliance with federal and state requirements. And I should point out, it's a high-level planning document. So we're looking at everything all at once across the whole region, across all of these modes. So there's several important things the plan has to do in addition to all the items I mentioned. It needs to prioritize these projects. So we need to prioritize roadway, transit, active transportation, and aviation. It needs to be fiscally constrained, as I said, so balancing the budgets with the costs. It needs to meet numerous federal MPO requirements, including those related to air quality. It needs to comply with federal environmental justice order and Title VI, and it needs to meet California greenhouse gas targets. And that's importantly, that's the sustainable community strategy focuses on that greenhouse gas targets. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then finally, it's mandated that an EIR be completed, a programmatic EIR, and we'll talk about what that means in a few minutes as well. So at the onset, you may remember that we prepared and got approved goals and objectives for this project. These are some of the high-level goals. And what I might draw your attention to as you look through this list is, importantly, it isn't just transportation goals. There's a recognition that transportation has a lot of important interconnectivities, including things like health and safety, environmental air quality, the delivery of projects that we've promised the taxpayers and the citizens, and economic and community vitality. So it covers a comprehensive list, recognizing that transportation is a key important part of our community. So importantly, a public outreach campaign was carried out as part of this. There were two key goals that were developed as part of that: to engage the broadest cost section of Stanislaus County and to make the planning process accessible, interactive, and engaging. So I'll cover some of those elements in a moment. So as part of that process, just to summarize, we did a presentation at each city council and at each board and at the Board of Supervisors meeting, which was 9 total, obviously. We also did pop-up tables at libraries prior to those meetings. We did targeted stakeholder discussions, 11 totaled, which covered CBOs, advocacy groups, housing authorities, environmental business groups, and developers. We did 7 community workshops, open houses, numerous community pop-ups, and there was Spanish translation at all of the public meetings. And there were several materials, including the executive summary for the RTP-SCS that was translated into Spanish. One of the key elements of this project was the development of a website, which was a one-stop shop for all of the happenings and activities that were carried out, including many of the documents. And it included an interactive map where you could look at transportation projects, proposals, and different solutions. That website is still available if you'd like to take a look at it, and it's at valleyvision2049.com. So I'm going to shift to talk about scenario guiding principles. So one of the important parts of this is we consider different futures as we develop the RTP and the SCS. And I should again say the regional transportation plan and the sustainable community strategy. So there's guiding principles that we use to essentially establish what is a good scenario. And so some of those elements included ensuring a jobs housing balance, focusing growth in low vehicle miles traveled areas, so areas where we already have things in close proximity to us, address access to opportunities, preserving farmland, and growing in infill areas. Through that process, you may remember we came up with 4 scenarios. The first one, A, is what we call business as usual, and that was the final RTP SCS scenario that was approved as part of the 2022 process. So that's kind of our benchmark to start with. And then we developed through that process 3 alternatives and evaluated those. The first one was a mixed use transit focus, which really kind of focused a little bit more about having development along transit corridors. The next one we kind of named mixed use job focus, and it really tried to address the job housing imbalance and located housing closer to employment. And the final one was increasing infill development. It had clustering of attractive near specific businesses and underutilized land. And so we evaluated those 4 through the process, and we arrived at, it says 3 up there, but it was C that we settled in on, which was the mixed use with job focus. And you'll see that if you take a close look at the report, that we basically did an assessment or a nice little graphic for each one of these. And so we assessed various things to compare them to. And so you'll see one of the key things comparing the business as usual, which was our last RTP, to the mixed use job focus. Sorry, was there a comment? Okay. There was a reduction in the number of farmland acres that were consumed. There was also a shift from 45% multifamily to 60%, and then a reduction in single family to 40%. So there's more detail provided in an entire chapter where we get into the various details and provide information related to that. So again, one of the important parts of the plan is it needs to be fiscally constrained. So there's a deep evaluation and taking a look at the potential project costs in their opening year and looking at revenue over that time period. And based on that, we believe we have a balanced plan that has revenue that exceeds the total costs. So revenue is projected to be potentially 12.1 billion with project costs of 8.4 billion. Likewise, we carried out an environmental justice process, and there's an entire chapter in the RTP SCS which addresses this. Really kind of covers the 4 steps of conducting a proper environmental justice analysis, which involves knowing your community by analyzing the demographic data. So there's detailed mapping that's been completed, developing a public engagement plan that responds to the community, considering proposed projects and likely adverse effects. That's a key element, looking at various projects, and then selecting an alternative incorporating mitigation that may be necessary. So one of the key requirements of an RTP is transportation conformity, and conformity really refers to the air quality pollutants that are really concerned around health effects on individuals, where the greenhouse gases are more related to climate change and are state requirements, not federal requirements. So it covers carbon monoxide, ozone, PM10, PM2.5, nitrogen dioxide, and it requires us to conform with the state implementation plan. The findings were that we expect that the plan will meet conformity. There's still been a little bit of activity in the background as we've worked to resolve exactly what the final budgets will be. But the plan as currently designed is anticipated to pass those final determinations. And then just on the state requirements, we're required to develop a plan that reduces per capita greenhouse gases from 2005 to 2020, and then 2005 to 2035. So that's a per capita basis by 12% and 16%. And as forecast, we currently have 13.2 for 2020. So that's a little bit of back casting, and then 18.3%. And we're engaged with the California Air Resource Board to discuss the results of that to have them certify the SCS. I'm just going to talk briefly about the program EIR. The environmental impact report is required under SB 375, which is essentially the enabling legislation for the Sustainable Community Strategy. It's basically a very broad, comprehensive evaluation. So it's important to recognize that this is evaluating the entirety of the plan all at once. So it's not any single specific projects, and those projects will individually have their own environmental process as necessitated. Two alternatives were considered that were slightly different, but they basically had scenario C, which was alternative one, which was no project, and then a no build where the SCS wasn't constructed as planned. And then alternative two was fully implementing alternative C. And that information, the findings from that report are included in the EIR, which is available online to download. And then just a few procedural things just to remember. So the final EIR and certification, it's actually separate from the RTP SCS process. The EIR actually has to be approved prior to the RTP SCS. That will include a response to comments, findings of the environmental impact report, a mitigation and monitoring report, and a statement, likely a statement of overriding considerations. And then the board needs a resolution certifying that EIR. And that'll happen at in the September meeting. And just as a reminder, these are the review periods. So we're coming up on the draft, both of those products. The draft EIR will actually be this 24th, so it's coming up rather rapidly. And then the RTP SCS, the review period ends on August 30. So we're actively receiving comments and planning to respond to those. Thank you.
Yes, Michael. All right. So again, the purpose of today's meeting is to hold a public hearing and receive comments on the draft 2026 RTP SCS, the air quality conformity analysis, and the EIR prepared for the RTP SCS. As Michael mentioned, the RTP SCS is the region's long-term transportation plan. The air quality conformity analysis shows that the region will attain its goals for clean air with all the projects listed in the RTP SCS and FTIP. And the EIR analyzes the environmental effects of the RTP SCS. There are two separate but overlapping public review periods. The comment period for the 2026 RTP SCS and air quality conformity analysis ends on August 30th. The comment period for the draft EIR ends on August 24th. We are taking comments via email, phone, or mail. Staff will respond to all public comments as part of the adoption of the documents. We will now open the public hearing for the draft 2026 RTP SCS, air quality conformity analysis, and the draft EIR.
Public hearing. Any comments from the public?
Milt Treeweiler, lifetime Stanislaus County resident. My main concern is, as I go around and attend county meetings and city meetings, is that at the public outreach, the largest contributors are the developers and the builders, and not the public. And they're only concerned with one thing, and that's money, and that's it. They're not concerned about our children, our grandchildren, or our descendants. That's not even a consideration for them. We know, but for fact, that the temperature on our Earth has gone up over 2 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 70 years. And this is taking major areas of farmland out of production. We also know that the Colorado River is going dry, the Amazon River is going dry, the Mississippi River is going dry, the Rhine River is going dry, the Seine River in France is going dry. There are rivers all over the earth that are going dry because our planet is warming. And these considerations aren't even considered. I mean, these facts are not even considered. It's just the money aspect of it. Well, that's what the developers want. Let's give it to them. And the fact is, Dave and the Building Industry Association controls Stanislaus County. I see that at the meetings I go to. He goes right up to the people. He goes up to the planners and he tells them what he wants. That's not planning for our children, our grandchildren, our descendants. That is ridiculous. We can't do those things. Once this land is paved over, you're not going to get it back again. You're not going to get it back again. You're creating a desert here in the best farmland on earth. It is ridiculous, and we don't need to do it. We could take every city in Stanislaus County right now and freeze their boundaries, and you could build up in those cities, and there would be no problem filling the needs of our population for the next 20 or 30 years. You don't have to gobble up the best farmland on the planet. Those are my comments. I just hope you think about this. I hope you really realize what you're doing and what you're not thinking about. That's the problem. We're not thinking about what we should be thinking about. Our children, your grandchildren, and your descendants. Thank you. And I hope you see what I'm talking about. I don't know, how we're going to stop this. It's a snowball rolling down a hill, but we've got to stop it. It's got to be stopped by the cities. It's got to be stopped by the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors. That's the only way it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Milt. Any other like to make public comment? Anything online? Okay. Go ahead and close the public hearing.
All right, yeah, we will now close the public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Staff will respond to all public comments as part of the adoption of the documents.
Francisco, sure, go ahead. You got a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that presentation. Very informative. Can we roll back to the pie slide, the draft revenue and cost projection, please? Yep, nope, the following one. Oh. Was there more than that one?
This was the only one related to revenue and costs.
That is the weirdest thing. I had to take a picture because I can't see either slide very well. And my picture does not have the distinctions on it at all. That's really fun. So my question was, what are those categories that on my picture that I'm looking at, what are they? But they are labeled on what I'm seeing here. But the one question that wasn't addressed no, this isn't the same picture. This doesn't have the notes. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Look, there's no notes. And there's no category explanation.
That's weird. I saw this slide. This is the only slide. Yeah.
All right. My question is, where does the difference of the 12 change in billion and the 8 change in billion, which is 3,750 billion, where does that go? What remains, the difference between the revenue and the cost?
So currently the revenue projections shown on the screen are forecasted estimates. They're not cash in hand or any commitments that we receive. It's also important to acknowledge that this is cash in 2049 dollars. So they also include escalation, inflation, and so on. For this exercise, we have not identified where that excess funding would be program, but presumably some of that could be available for local projects. But at the moment, right now, we're focused on the project list for the regional transportation plan, which is the total costs that are shown up on the screen. The pie chart currently breaks down the cost by project category, but we have not forecasted or estimated where any excess or surplus funding would be programmed.
If and when that happens, what does that process look like to determine where that excess funding is directed to?
What that process looks like? Well, we would have a sense of what that funding is, and presumably if there is excess funding beyond our projects that are currently programmed, it would be an opportunity for Stancock to coordinate with its member agencies to identify potential projects, either through a call for projects or reviewing the project list in the RTP. Remember that in order for a project to be eligible for funding, it must be included on the RTP project list. So if there is surplus funding, you would essentially be looking at the project list as currently available for review and figuring out which of those projects would elevate to priority and be able to be ready to get constructed for the timeline according to that surplus funding.
And Francisco, can I clarify too? Some of these revenue sources are formulaic, but some are also competitive revenue sources. So they're not given. It's just we looked back, or I mean, the methodology was to look back and look at the success rate in terms of competitive grants that have been achieved in this region, and then just escalated that out. So that's just really a rough. What you're supposed to do when it's fiscally constrained is just look at what is potentially reasonably available potentially, and that's assuming similar levels of funding from similar programs. And as we all know, administrations change and the reauthorization bill is up this next year, so we'll see how that changes funding programs. But this just forecasts out reasonably available potential funding. It's really rough, estimate based off of historical revenue sources. But again, this is includes competitive sources that are not given sources. And then on the cost side too, these are planning level cost estimates. So those, cost estimates, that's pretty rough ballpark at this point in the project development stage. So that's why you see this difference. You want your revenues definitely to be at least equal to or above your cost to be fiscally constrained.
Thank you. No more questions.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of information. On page 24 of our agenda, it said recent collision data indicate that more than 7,000 vehicle collisions occurred in Stanislaus County in 2025, as shown in the table. And then it talks about how urban areas accounted for approximately 63% of reported collisions, while rural areas accounted for approximately 37%. What was the criteria? And if you don't have the answer tonight, I'd love to have it another time. But the criteria for urban versus rural in our county.
I will defer that question to our consultant team. Michael, if you have any insight on that, on the methodology?
I'll look it up and get back to you. I need to make sure I take a close look at it.
Curious how much of it, like, was it like downtown of each of the 9 cities, or was it, what part of the county?
I think we could provide you a map to really kind of like to illuminate that. So we'll prepare a map.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
No question. I just want to thank the team and the consulting team for all the hard work. We've gone through these exercises and scenario planning through the Valley Vision Steering Committee meetings. And I also want to thank all of your staff for their support through all of that, because every comment was taken and implemented into this plan. And as it relates to the public comment, I think I've mentioned it before, but I would love for all of us to start taking this information back to our communities so that we're able to get deeper input from our residents, because I know this is going to be an ongoing process. So thank you again.
Thank you, Rach. All right. If there is no other questions, we're going to move on. Thank you. Public hearing 6B, draft 2027 Federal Transportation Improvement Program, FTIP. Sophia.
Hi, thank you, Chair. My name is Sophia So, an assistant planner here at Stancog. I work under Jose Luis, who unfortunately could not be here in person today, but is available online if you have any questions. Next, oh, actually. So I'll be presenting on the 2027 Federal Transportation Improvement Program, which will henceforth be referred to as the FTIP. A good way to look at the FTIP is to think of it as the first 4 years of the RTP. It's a supporting document, a short-term project list. All the projects that are in our FTIP are on the RTP. But the difference lies in the fact that the RTP can kind of be viewed as a wish list. It's everything that we would like to do with all the funds that are going to be available. However, the FTIP is more fiscally constrained. It consists of all the projects that have either reasonably available funds or committed funds. All the projects in the FTIP are also those that are federally funded, so there's federal dollars to those names, or are regionally significant. It covers 4 years, and this cycle will consist of federal fiscal year 2027 through 2030. And like I mentioned before, it's a financially constrained document, meaning all the funds have been identified, funding sources have been identified for all these projects. So here are just the next steps. We have finished the draft FTIP and it was out for public review in August. It did technically closed for public review, but we still are taking comments at this public hearing. If anyone would like to get any comments in before we finalize it and recommend it to committees for adoption in September. So in September, we're going to bring that final draft over to committees for recommendation for motion to the board to approve for adoption. And so hopefully on September 16th, we'll get board approval. We will then bring it over to Caltrans by September 30th. The Caltrans will submit it to the feds, and then we anticipate final federal approval by December 16th. If you have any comments or questions regarding the presentation, you can reach out to me. And I'll bring it back over to Francisco for the public hearing portion.
Thank you, Sophia. So again, the purpose of today's meeting is to hold a public hearing and receive comments on the draft 2027 Federal Transportation Improvement Program. Although the public comment period for the FTIP ended on August 5th, we are providing one final opportunity for public comment during today's public hearing. We will now open the public hearing on the draft FTIP.
Open the public hearing. Any public comment? Anything online? Okay, go ahead and close the public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. I don't know you, Chair, or if Amber has the answer, but the deadline for federal approval is December the 16th. And that date in the past has been very in the past, when there's been challenging conversations and possibilities of government closure, things don't get signed and things don't move. So are we, if that's an error were to play in, would we be impacted by that in terms of not getting the federal approval? And what does that mean for us? Do we want to get it in earlier? What's the likelihood of that happening? It's happened quite frequently, and I've seen it in other major projects impact.
Yeah, the Stancog team is closely coordinating with the federal staff on the FTIP. So, our goal is to have the policy board adopt the FTIP at the September meeting, so we can get that application into them and they can process it. To date, there hasn't been any mention of delays or forecasted delays, so those conversations haven't been had, but we will make sure to address those concerns as we continue to coordinate with our federal partners.
Well, and the key requirement is that we adopt it and submit it as approved. And, if that does happen, that's going to be a statewide issue or even a national issue. So, we'll have definitely delegations that are going to be dealing with it. And I'm sure Caltrans will come to the table and work with us, if we do run into that problem. It won't just be our region. That's, all I can kind of say to that. But we don't anticipate that being an issue right now with that particular approval.
Well, of course, we don't anticipate it. We're thinking positively, but
Of course.
does everyone submit it at the same time?
Yeah, they're all due by that same
Yeah.
deadline. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to cross that road once we get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to 7A. Consider and adopt a resolutions of necessity to acquire real property or an interest in real property by eminent domain for the State Route 132 West project for the following parcels and as stated on the agenda. Tony.
Good evening, board members. My name is Tony Harris, Manager of Strategic Project Delivery, basically Stanco's project manager for the State Route 132 project. Okay. So tonight I am here to present a resolution necessity. The agenda for this presentation, I will first go through the project description. I will review the considerations that the board has to take into consideration for a resolution of necessity, walk through a summary of those necessity findings, and then provide staff recommendation. So this exhibit is an exhibit to show the State Route 132 West project from Needham Street to Gates. The project ultimately is envisioned to be a 4-lane expressway with a freeway-to-freeway interchange at State Route 99 and State Route 132. This is a more zoomed-in look at the State Route 99, 132 interchange. This project would basically include the construction of freeway-to-freeway connections from State Route 99 to State Route 132 West to and from the south. It would also reconstruct the existing Kansas Avenue interchange with some improvements. In addition, the gates to Dakota Avenue, the existing State Route 132 has been constructed as a 2-lane expressway from State Route 99 to Dakota Avenue. This project would extend it as a 2-lane expressway. It would construct overcrossings at Hart Road and Dakota Avenue and connect back into existing State Route 132 at Gates Roads with a roundabout. This exhibit is to show you schematically the right-of-way that is needed to be acquired for the construction of the State Route 99 132 interchange. You'll see on another exhibit coming up that Caltrans had acquired some right-of-way in the past, but in the area of the interchange, this is all new right-of-way that need to be acquired for the improvements that I mentioned previously. For Gates to Dakota, this shows the right-of-way that's needed for the project. We are acquiring majority of the right-of-way for the ultimate facility. What you see in blue is right-of-way that Caltrans has previously acquired, and what is shown in orange is the right-of-way that Stancock is in the process of acquiring for the construction of this project. Considerations for a resolution necessity. In order to adopt the resolution necessity, the board has been asked to consider and find this for each of the resolution necessity. One, that the public interest and necessity requires this project. Two, the project is planned and located in a manner that would be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. The property sought to be acquired is necessary for the project, and that an offer as required by government code has been made to the owners of record. Now, I will walk through each one of these. Regarding public interest and necessity requires the project. The State Route 132 West project, it will improve mobility through the western Stanislaus County. It will improve capacity for regional movement of traffic and goods. It also would improve the circulation on local roads and connectivity from State Route 99 to State Route 132, and it would continue to provide route continuity. In regards to the interchange, State Route 99 132 interchange, the project is planned and located in a manner that would be most compatible with greatest public good and least private injury. A draft environmental document considered 3 alternatives, and one of those alternatives was no build. It went through an extensive planning and analysis process regarding each one of the alternatives, and that included community input, public hearings to ensure that all the projects, impacts of the project were considered and weighed and mitigated to the greatest extent possible. Caltrans approved the environmental document, both CEQA and NEPA, and the route adoption in March 2018, and they selected alternative 2 as the preferred alternative. For Gates to Dakota, and discussing how the project is planned and located in a manner that is going to be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury, the draft environmental document considered 5 alternatives, which also included a no build. It also went through an extensive planning and analysis of each of the alternatives, and that included community input along with public hearings to ensure that all the impacts of the project was considered, weighed, and mitigated to the greatest extent possible. Caltrans approved the CEQA and NEPA environmental document and route adoption in April of 2022. And as part of that process, they selected alignment 2 as the preferred alternative. Before you tonight, the property that is sought to be acquired is necessary for the project. There are 2 resolution necessities related to the State Route 99 132 interchange. That is the Matthews parcel and the Pereza parcel. Then also there is the Gates to Dakota Avenue. There are 2 parcels that are in discussion. One is the UVR Enterprise Incorporated, and then the other one is the Caressa property. Now, I will walk through these a little bit more in detail. This is an exhibit for the interchange showing the locations of the Matthews parcel and also the Pereza parcel. The Matthews parcel is needed basically for the eastbound 132 west to southbound 99 freeway to freeway connector. This would be a partial acquisition along with a temporary construction easement that's necessary for the project. The Pereza parcel is a parcel that's needed for the opposite direction with the connectors, and that would be northbound 99 to westbound State Route 132, and this will be a full acquisition. Moving to Gates Road to Dakota Avenue, this is an exhibit that shows the location of the UVR Enterprise acquisition and also the Caressa acquisition. The UVR Enterprise is basically a easement acquisition that is needed to provide access to a parcel that otherwise would be landlocked with no access. That is why that is proposed to be acquired for construction as part of the project. The Caressa parcel, this is, as some of you may remember, there is a larger acquisition that's needed for this parcel, which this board approved a resolution of necessity in November of last year. After further research of title information, that local road that is shown in red to the left up there, the assumption was that that road was owned by the county. After looking more closely at it, it was realized that the easement that was never adopted by the county, so the fee holder is the adjoining property owner. So we are back now to actually acquire that's necessary for that road that will no longer exist once the project is constructed. Offers as required by government code have been made to the owners of record. The Matthews offer was made August 15th, 2025. Pereza's offer was made March 10th, 2026. The UVR Enterprise offer was made May 1st, 2026, and the Caressa offer for the additional piece related to the road was made June 15th, 2026. So staff recommendation is the following: that you find that the public interest and necessity requires the State Route 132 project. 2, you find that the project is planned and located in a manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. You also find that the subject parcels or interests are in or specifically described in the resolution of necessity as necessary for the project, and that is for each one of the parcels in front of you tonight. the Matthews parcel, the Perez parcel, the UVR Enterprise, and the Crestman. Also, you find that offers have been made to the owners of record for each one of them. And staff is recommending that you adopt resolution necessity in the form that attached to the staff report, and they are identified as attachments 1A through 1D. At this point, I will entertain any questions.
Any questions for Tony? Go ahead.
No questions. Just to reinforce, Tony, that these are, we go ahead with these RONs, but the negotiations continue on.
That is correct. Negotiations do continue on. Some of the RONs that you previously adopted, we've been able to reach agreements on a few of those. And so our intent is to continue to negotiate, move forward. The purpose of adopting the RONs now is to allow us to meet project schedules and funding expenditure requirements.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up to public comment. I do have one public comment card. And it's for resolution 26-05 of 7A. Raj.
Thank you, board. Good evening. My name is Raj. I'm here representing UVR Enterprises. I'm one of the representatives. My dad's the second one back there. I'm here to object to proposed easement across our property for phase 2, Highway 132. First of all, I want to be clear, we're not objecting to 132. We understand it's a very important project to the community. My concern is simple. We understand the easement is proposing for the new highway will affect the person right behind us for a private property use. My question is, why should our property be a permanent burden to provide access to another private property? Before taking our land, STANCOG should show that the Pacific easement is truly necessary and other reasonable alternatives have been fully considered. There's appeared to be a land next to the basin in our land I could probably use, and there could be also other engineering alternatives, including different access roads, ramps, undercrossing. To give you guys a heads, between our land and the basin, you could Caltrans and for this project has already been owned by you guys. So there is already a little road already there, you just need to be built. California law requires consideration of greater public use and least private entry. So respectfully, I ask 3 questions. Why are properties necessary? Were other routes studies? Why were other alternatives rejected? I'm also concerned about the future financial burden this easement could create. There's a primary case, Scheidt versus Bank of America, shows a roadway easement can seriously distribute involving road improvements, drainage, maintaining, and responsibilities. This is what I'm asking to prevent. 20 years from now, who pays for this roads needs major repairs? Who pays for drainage problems, payments, gates, and other improvements? Who's responsible if the dispute over the road? Why should we not have accepted those unknown risks simply because highway projects needed to provide another private property with access? If STANCOG believes this easement is necessary, there should be a record agreeing permanent protections from our property and all future owners from responsibility from maintenance, repairs, improvements, insurance, and liabilities connected to this road. Our request is reasonable, indemnification of the property owner. Please fully examine the alternatives before permanently burdening our property. Until STANCOG demonstrates that particular easement is necessary and reasonable alternatives will not work, we respectfully ask board not to approve this easement in this current location. Thank you for your time. I also want to mention the proposed amount was given at $5,000 for that easement.
Thank you, Raj. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Anything online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for further questions or comments.
I think it would be appropriate because there were some questions there regarding the easement. If Tony could address for me.
Dave, remember when you're talking, pull that mic up.
I'm sorry, can we get a map up too?
This is the parcel that's in question. What we did is we located the access road adjacent to a access control line. Once you build State Route 132, there will be a fence, and you're not allowed to have private access within the state's right of way. That is a standard requirement that goes along with access control in particular. Looking at this is what we looked at the location and determined it was probably the best location to provide access. If we were to do other locations, there'd be more additional improvements we have to do in that regards. The concern about future liability, we was not sure how Stancart as an organization can provide something like that in perpetuity. But our intent is to continue to negotiate as we move forward with the process, because our schedule is to be able to go to construction early next year.
Tony, is there another, where we, in proportion to 132, where that's located? I'm just trying to figure out where that.
This is basically near North Dakota Avenue. It's on the south side of where it existed, now ties into that area overall. And that is that drainage basin there that you see existing out there today.
Okay, and so the freeway is up above?
It's
that?
up above.
Okay.
It's up above. You see the right-of-way line in blue with access control hatching. Just above that, if I had a pointer, is where you actually comes out now and the 132, and you tie into the existing Dakota.
Okay, and that's Salida Holding across the street.
That is correct. So there's really was limited options we had to provide this in that area. And as I was stating, the basin there is going to be a state-owned facility that they will maintain, and it will be included within the access control fence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions for Tony? And obviously, and you stated it, negotiations still continue.
That is correct.
It sounds like we were unclear though on that point on, you mentioned you're not sure what StanCog can do.
One of the requests that was presented to us, as you heard earlier tonight, is that how to come up with how to address liability on private property, that Stancart would take that on in perpetuity. And so the teams looked at that, and we're not sure that's appropriate or how to even do that in particular, but that's still something that will be in discussions.
If there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make motion.
And can you make that motion to include the entire, all the resolutions?
Yes, all four resolutions.
And I will second that.
Okay. I got a first and a second, and I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Member Chiesa,
Aye.
Member Condit,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Chair Condit, my apologies. Member Withrow,
Yes.
Members Wallen,
Aye.
Member Escucha Brayton,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graham.
Aye.
Member Phillips.
Yes.
Member Gokin,
Aye.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Member Hernandez,
Yes.
and Member Gilbert.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have a 12-0 vote. The motion passes for Reso 2603.
Thank you. Okay, moving to 7B, appoint a policy board member to serve as the alternate on the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes.
I might, just for a moment, just a point of order. I just wanted to clarify for the record that the motion passes for resolutions 2603 through 2606 as reported by this.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Yeah,
Thank you, Chair. This item is to appoint an alternate member to the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board. Currently, we have Representative Councilmember Chiesa is the current representative, and then a vacancy was formed when George Carr, Councilmember George Carr, was the alternate. So we currently have a vacancy on that board. StanCog is one of 10 member agencies that make up the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. which was formed in 2012 to administer the Gold Runner passenger rail service. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Details on this board meets bi-monthly in Stockton, but there are remote option. Yes.
I just wanted to note that it says on under one, the SJRRC board, but we're referring to this SJJPA board.
Correct. I apologize. Yes.
Yeah, thank
Right.
Do you typically, how do you depend on the alternate?
Very rarely,
Yeah.
very rarely, yeah. So, and the meetings, this is the Amtrak board, right? The San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, there's one vote for 10 different counties, Alameda, Contra Costa, Sacramento, San Joaquin down to Tulare. Kern is not a party to this. And it meets, they do have a meeting location that moves from time to time. They used to move up and down the counties, but now most of the time I'm doing it remote unless it's close. And Richard O'Brien was the alternate for a long time, but this is a board that someone should try and be on there long term because it's like the air board. It's very difficult to learn the issues. So if someone, hopefully you're thinking about running again and whoever wants to do it and wants to be on or trying to be on there long term, I think it's beneficial for us.
I would consider it as your alternate.
Oh, there we go. Anybody else interested? Field. Sounds like. So moved. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to open it up to public comment. Any public comment on this agenda? Anything online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Go ahead and motion that Mayor Hernandez.
Mayor Hernandez be the alternate member.
Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And you're more than welcome to just listen in. And then I'll turn off my screen and then you can speak. 11 o'clock. We've been conflicting with San Joaquin Regional Policy Council this week. So rail is my priority. So I won't be joining the Regional Policy Council the way they did that.
Okay, moving on to 8. Those are informational items. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at those. Moving on to Caltrans report. Caleb, good to have you here.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Good to be here. I've got 3 announcements and 4 funding opportunities for tonight. The first one, CTC recently approved funding for more than 150 new projects that will improve safety on the state highway system and strengthen infrastructure resiliency. 2 notable projects in the North Valley area. The first one was for San Joaquin COG for their 99-120 connector project. They received $20 million to support phase 1B, that project. So good to see that thing continue to move forward. And then the other one was $2.7 million in support costs for the State Route 152 Velota Road intersection project in Merced County. Recently, Caltrans announced that it received approximately $1.4 million in grant funding from the California Office of Traffic Safety, OTS, to help expand and improve traffic data collection that will help improve safety on the state highway system. You know, Caltrans collects and analyzes a lot of data, so this additional funding will help us improve safety as we continue moving forward. And then one project I just wanted to just identify for tonight. So Caltrans recently started a pavement project on State Route 39 in the city of Patterson, spanning from Crow's Landing. Construction began on August 16th and it's going to be completed in early November. But this work will use a method known as partial depth recycling, also known as PDR, in which crews remove and recycle the top 3 to 6 inches of existing asphalt, blend it with stabilizing agents, and then place the mixture back to the form of stronger base before applying new asphalt overlay. This definitely helps with efficiency, low waste solution, and restores the roadway surface while conserving materials and reducing environmental impacts. And then lastly, there's 4 funding opportunities, which Ms. Silva printed out, and each of you guys have, and I'll just touch on them, but happy to take any questions. The first is from the Federal Transit Administration. Their call for applications for public transportation on Indian reservations, $18.9 million available for that. Deadline is November 2nd. Second one is the US DOT Buses and Bus Facility Program for low and no emission projects. $610 million available for that. Deadline is September 21st. And then 2 Caltrans opportunities. One is for the local Highway Safety Improvement Program, also known as HSIP. And this is to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries on California's public roads. Projects must address specific safety issues and be supported by a local roadway safety plan. Currently $370 million available in that pot. Deadline is November 2nd. And then lastly is the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. The call for applications is currently open and applications are due November 9th. Last cycle, the city of Waterford was the only jurisdiction in Stanislaus County that received funding. They got $398,000 for their active transportation plan. So we're happy to meet with any of the city or the counties that are interested in application and would love to review any draft applications before they're submitted on October 9th. That concludes my report. Unfortunately, I won't be here in September or October, but we'll ensure that somebody from Caltrans District Office is here to support you guys and to provide the report.
Yeah, it's a long vacation, Caleb. Save up the time. Yeah. Any questions for Caleb?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment. I'll say that Caleb has, as we went to many other cities, came to the city of Ceres and explained to us the process on how to make claims on their website, as we always do in the city of Ceres. And the results, as I could tell as I was driving down the freeway and noticed that there was a lot of traffic and realized it was Caltrans, code enforcement and myself and the city manager have been making a couple of different requests. They have been cleaning up our on and off ramps. And that's just the beginning. And I want to say thank you very much because I know our citizens are noticing and so am I. Thank you.
Well, I can also say thank you because the last time we were here, I mentioned 120 outside the clock tower of Oakdale. And now next week, it's going to be getting worked on. So thank you so much.
I have a question for you, but I'll piggyback on that. You've been very reactive to our concerns. I appreciate that. The Highway 33 repavement project from Patterson to Cruz Landing, is that going to continue from Cruz Landing through Newman, the county line?
I don't, not currently. That's just the current project that's on right now, but I can definitely check with the All
right, any others? I'm gonna jump on the Caleb wagon too and tell you thank you for taking care of that issue on the 120 bridge north of Oakdale, where it was really rough going across. Went across it today and had no issues. So thank you.
Appreciate that feedback. I know that particular one was a little bit complicated, so it took a little bit longer, but
yeah,
you know, we rely on you guys to give us that feedback. We've got a lot of pavement to maintain.
Absolutely.
No,
yeah. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. You want to jump on the wagon?
Well, yeah, because he's taking 2 months off. Yeah, I'll get on that wagon. But thank you, Caleb, for your team's partnership. Like seriously, their work and the FHWA certification, our OWP, everything just been super supportive. They've already come and provided training to our staff. So I just really appreciate the partnership that your staff has provided and look forward to working with you guys in the future. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Feedback.
All right. Carol, you're up with the finance director report.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Since joining StanCog late June, so I've been here about a whole 7 weeks. My focus has been understanding our current processes, identifying opportunities for improvement, and building a strong foundation for the future. I look forward to providing these regular updates and continue making progress in strengthening our financial and administrative operations. And I plan to include any feedback that you all provide here today, just like you have earlier. So I hope that these reports are useful to all of you. On the finance side of the house, for our fiscal year 23-24 annual audit, we're making great progress. We plan to have hopefully our final draft in within the next few days. So we will be presenting that at the September meeting. And that particular audit has taken some time. Due to staff transitioning to a new auditing firm, there's just been a lot of things to go through, nuances to get to know. And as I've come on, we've been able to make significant progress. As many of you are aware, StanCog has been working through several years of delayed financial reporting and audit activity. And as mentioned, staffing transitions. This audit has required, like I said, substantially more analysis than would normally be expected. And as far as the first year engagement with our new auditors. Although this has extended our timeline, I do feel it is important that we complete this process correctly. Our objective is not to simply finish the audit, but to ensure the financial statements are accurate, well supported, and provide reliable representation of StanCog's financial position. We're now in the final stages, and as I said, we should be getting our final draft soon. And so beyond completing this particular audit, our broader goal is to restore StanCog to a timely financial reporting and return the agency to a regular audit cycle. We do plan on starting on the 24-25 audit very soon, and then in the early spring to work on the 25-26. Our goal is to have all outstanding audits completed and to return StanCog to a regular audit cycle by June of 27. For Measure L expenditure reporting, I know everybody's very anxious to get that reporting out to all of you. As I stated, we are assessing everything, doing a lot of reconciliations, and making progress into compiling all of the Measure L expenditure data. Historically, expenditure reporting was not done consistently, resulting in gaps in historical databases. More recently, jurisdictions have been providing timely reporting. However, additional work is needed to reconcile prior year data and ensure the information is complete. As I continue transitioning into this role, I'm working with staff to bring that database current, validate historical records, and establish sustainable processes in maintaining accurate reporting in the future. This effort will take additional time, but our priority is to provide a comprehensive, accurate, and meaningful information that demonstrates how Measure L has contributed to our region. On the administrative services side, as far as policy review and updates, one of my other priorities has been conducting a comprehensive review of StanCog's policies and procedures to ensure they reflect current operations, best practices, and organizational needs. To support this effort, I have established an internal policy work group that will review financial policies, accounting procedures, the employee handbook, and other critical administrative policies requiring updates or clarification. Rather than bringing this forward in isolated policy revisions, our goal is to present a coordinated package of these policy updates for consideration, and our goal is to have that to you by the end of this calendar year. In addition to reviewing the policies, I am also evaluating StanCog's organizational structure to ensure staffing, responsibilities, and reporting relationships support both our current operations and future organizational goals. A significant priority is strengthening our finance department. Recruitment for both a finance manager and a senior financial services specialist are underway. And filling these positions will be an important step in building additional capacity within our finance team. These roles will help strengthen financial reporting, internal controls, budgeting, and long-term financial planning. Additionally, StanCog is due for a comprehensive classification and compensation study. The last agency-wide study was completed in 2016, and as you can imagine, we have changed quite a bit since then. After evaluating potential approaches, we do believe that retaining an independent consultant to come in and do this review is the most appropriate. An external review will provide an objective assessment of classifications, compensation, internal equity, and market competitiveness, while allowing our board members and committee members to remain focused on government and policy matters. Staff will continue to evaluate consultants and will return with recommendations regarding proposed process and next steps. Overall, I do hope that these reports will provide you with timely information, provide transparency. Much of the work that is underway involves strengthening the foundational processes and systems that support StanCog's operations. While this work happens behind the scenes, it is critical to improving transparency, accountability, and the agency's ability to effectively serve this region. I appreciate your continued support as we work together to build a stronger foundation for StanCog's future.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol?
Slow is fast, right? Do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, member reports. Mayor, I know you have.
Yes, I do. Highlight for August in Modesto is the project nearing completion for the pavement rehabilitation of Coffee Road from Scenic Drive to Norwegian Avenue. This $3 million Measure L project was awarded in May of this year and includes upgraded bicycle facilities and safer pedestrian crossings per the city's recent adopted Safe Streets for All plan. That's it.
All right, thank you. Rachel?
Roselle at Clarabelle area is now open. I don't know how many times gas I wasted going down the wrong way every day, but everyone's very excited. I think we're doing good work in between the county and the city to keep up communication about it all in the process. So then Measure L ad hoc committee also took a summer hiatus. So we have our next meeting on August 28th. And then Chair Condon and I are going to the MLOC special meeting to give them an update on the work so far with that ad hoc committee as we try and stay on time from what we previously mentioned.
Okay. Any other reports?
Yes, sir. So today I sat down with a council member who wanted to talk about ACE and the San Joaquins, talking about the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority and the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, which you're an ad hoc member, is that what they call it? Ex officio.
Officio.
Okay, there we go.
Non-voting.
So it took me about 40 minutes to confuse the heck out of them, and because there are so many moving parts. But the one thing that came out of it is that we're continually putting in for grants at the jointly with the Regional Rail Commission and the Joint Powers Authority. And I just wrote a list down of what we have in right now in requests. And there's a build grant for $25 million for the Modesto station that we currently have in. Federal state partnership for $218 million for the Natoma station, Del Paso siding, and the San Joaquin Street layover. That's the northernmost terminus of the ACE on the Sacramento subdivision line that goes through downtown Sacramento and will be a Sacramento airport stop. A transit and intercity passenger rail capital program, TIRCEP grant for $50.75 million for the Newark, Albury siding, Cabral track extension, and Altamont a mobility hub study. Consolidated rail infrastructure and safety improvement grant for $259.4 million for the Cabral track extension. So those are the ones we have in right now currently. You know, the success, what I talked about is the state of California had a lot of money they put into mobility. It was either through transit and or trains through the state rail plan. So we were very successful early on. Now that there's, I would say the state budget's not where it was 3 or 4 years ago. So it's hard to come by money, whether it's for air quality component, which we use for rail. And then at the federal level, it's the same thing. So we've hit kind of a loggerhead in funding because we were really successful turning Anthony Canella's $400 million into about $1.5 billion in matching funds. So now it's become more difficult. So I don't want you to think that we're not moving forward. We're not trying to complete projects. And as this is going on, as we're asking for more money, the host railroads, BNSF and UP, require more and more. They used to have train sets they could pull off on a 1 mile extension. Now they're asking for 2 mile extensions. So we're not in a position where we can tell the host railroads when we're trying to buy a slot, essentially to run a train on. It's become more difficult. Also, the center load platforms, before, if you go out to the Amtrak station in Modesto or down in Denair, stand on the side, train pulls up, you jump on, and away you go. And now the requirement is an up and over. There's 2 tracks, and you're going to load from the center platform. So you'll either load to the right or to the left. It gives them a lot more flexibility, but there's a cost associated with elevators and or tunnels underneath where you have the Kinder Morgan fuel line and you've got fiber optics cables and everything to contend with sewer lines for that matter. I don't think they're in the right of way, but they're close. And so anyways, there's more and more challenges being presented. That's why the timeline keeps slipping. I don't want you to think that it's not from a lack of trying on behalf of the 2 boards that represent you.
Thank you, Vito. Okay, we are at the spot in the agenda where we are going to adjourn to closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board's going to adjourn to closed session to discuss item 13A as identified on the agenda.
Right over there. When we vote. I'll be right over there.
Okay, we are reconvening from closed session and there is no reportable action. We are adjourned.